Hey guys. Now then. Okay, what I would like you to do is if you could just tell me in the comments if you can hear me and see me okay. That would be very helpful for me at this precise moment in time. Ooh, I'm pixely, but can you hear me okay? That's the most important thing. Just let me know in the comments. Yes. If the signal here, I'm in Koh Samui at the moment, and the signal is okay. It's fairly stable. It's not amazing. The most important thing is that you can hear me. Terry's been a little bit delayed. He's going to join us in a moment. But I'm going to get straight into this now. So we're going to be looking today particularly at shame around narcissistic abuse. And I want to start by talking particularly about men who've been in relationships with highly narcissistic women who would be defined either as borderline, psychopath, or women tend to get the narcissism, the NPD diagnosis less. And why it is that men, I think, are particularly vulnerable to the effects of shame and self-isolation post-narcissistic abuse. This was inspired by a guy whose event I'll be speaking at in October, a guy called Anthony Johnson. He runs 21 studios, and I'll be doing, I'm speaking at his event on October the 11th in Florida. And before that, I'll probably do a seminar in New York, and after that, I'll probably do one at UCLA again. So, you know, around the October dates, I'll be in America, and I'll sort something out. I'll put all that on the website. And he did a video that went viral called Marrying Medusa, which is about an hour and 40 minutes of him relaying exactly what happened to him when he married a woman who was a psychopathic, narcissistic, borderline, and a histrionic. So she was the full cluster B spectrum. She had all of the traits going for her. And he lays out in detail exactly what the effect on him. And he does it for an hour and 40 minutes, and he does it with unflinching honesty and a very high degree of bravery. This is not something that I've been prepared to do, or brave enough to do, or willing to do on a public forum myself as yet. I may well choose to do it eventually if, up until this point, I've just not been convinced that it affects my ability to help people, really. And I sort of resent, maybe it's the Brit in me, resents the idea of unveiling my privacy, partly for the titillation and entertainment of people. I'm not saying that everybody would want to listen to that story, would be doing it for that reason, but there is a lot of that about, you know, with the Kardashians and the surge of the evil that is reality TV. I do think people are trained to think that they have a right to know the personal details of other people's lives, and it can be a bit gross and gratuitous. That's why I haven't done it. Now I'm thinking more about men, particularly in this situation, and what I was like coming through the situation. I'm thinking, well, one reason for doing it would be to, as Anthony has done, would be to sort of show the way and lead the way forward and say, well, look, even though you're a man, and even though it's shameful, this is something that you don't have to go on a public forum and talk about, and you don't have to announce it with your real name and your real face, but it is something that you have to talk about, and that this is something that happens to men too, but it's going to be a lot less reported because of the shame around it. So where does the shame come from when we're talking particularly about men? Well, simply the shame is primarily that it clashes with our self-image of what we are told, what we are indoctrinated, what we are gaslit into believing a manly man should be. A manly man should not be the victim of emotional abuse by anybody. A manly man should not be beaten up psychologically and emotionally by anyone, least of all a woman, least of all a woman who he's in an intimate relationship with, because surely such a masculine, manly man who eats only raw meat and wrestles bears and kills them with his bare hands would never allow himself to be trapped and dominated in that way. And you kind of think, when you start unpacking this, you start to think, oh, there's a lot here. There's a lot of junk here that really is quite toxic. We've heard plenty about toxic masculinity from the point of view of how men's self-perception can become exploitative, narcissistic, and abusive. But what we haven't heard of is toxic masculinity in the way that it victimizes men. We've heard about toxic masculinity victimizing women, but our archetypes, our ideas of what a man is, can also highly victimize and damage men as well. So I think this applies to everybody when it comes to shame, is that frequently we don't want to talk about what we've been through just because it clashes with the self-image. And it's not a very nice thing to have to admit and to acknowledge. Just checking the comments to make sure everybody can hear me. Somebody said, a manly man shouldn't do that to a woman though. Yes, that's right. But we're not talking about women right now. Just for a moment, just for a fraction of a second, please permit me in this space that is my social media account to talk about the effects that it can have on men. That would be really, really useful to be able to do that. So that, as I just explained, I can encourage men to come forward with their story. It's not about you just for a second, just for a minute. It's going to be about men who are the victims of narcissistic abuse. If you can permit that, that would be really, really helpful within this particular space. They are spraying for the mosquitoes. They're going to they put a mist out that just kills the mosquitoes. I'm really sorry about that. As they say in life, timing is everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the gain down on my mic. It won't last long because I'll have to walk away. I'm going to turn the gain down on the mic and into my mouth so there's less environmental and ambient noise. So I'm just going to check in the comments if you could let me know. Can you still hear me okay? Just let me know. Can you let me know that you can hear me okay? If you just say in the chat, yes, we can hear you. Anybody in the, it's not as good. Okay. If I do this, right, I've just turned it up. You can hear me. I've turned it up and the guy with the mosquito spray is walking away. So I hope you can't pick up too much of that in the background. I'll keep it here. If it's like, if the noise of the mosquito sprayer is like really, really overwhelming, just say, and I'll do something about it. Okay, perfect. So for all of us, it's a shameful thing, but particularly I think it's important to try and reach out to men and say to them, look, there are many, many, many males who struggle with this, who are at the effects of female narcissistic abuse, and you can come forward, you can speak out, you can say something, and you can reach out to other men and other women who are the survivors of narcissistic abuse. Narcissistic abuse respects no boundaries in age, nationality, gender, ethnicity, none of them. And it doesn't matter where in the world that narcissist was raised. They're all trained in the same school of demonology on planet narcissism. So I would encourage men to speak up and say, yes, own it. First of all, you got to admit that you got a problem. Yes, I was the victim of narcissistic abuse. Yes, I am in pain. Yes, this was done to me by a woman. She was my intimate partner. I didn't see it coming. Yes, I failed some huge cultural taboo by not being the perfect John Wayne, Robert Mitchum mixed with Bruce Lee and Toshiro Mifune version of what a man should be, just silently taking all pain and slaughtering all the danger in the environment with scant regard for his own well-being, which can't deny that's what we're all raised on. And yeah, that feeds into this concept of toxic masculinity. But I want to raise the point that toxic masculinity is a knife that cuts both ways. God damn you, Koh Samui. God damn you. The fucking you guys probably don't mind, but the obsessive compulsive side of me is going, now the light has changed, the natural light has changed. I'm going to have to do something about that. I apologize. The storms can come in inside of like 5 minutes here. The last 5 minutes, it thrashes the floor and then it's all gone. 1 second. Thank you for being patient with my obsessive compulsive perfectionism. No, that is better. I think everybody would agree that that's better. So beyond men feeling intense amounts of shame for falling prey, for falling victim to this, why does anybody feel shame? So women aren't upheld in terms of being able to take pain, in terms of being able to be in control and having to be the person who protects the entire tribe from any and all danger through ultimate self-sacrifice. So why do women feel shame about it? Well, it gets darker and it gets deeper. We have tremendous social taboos about things. And when you travel a lot and you live in other places, as I've done, you do, in order to sort of you want to have a good rep when you're a foreigner. Wherever you go, you don't want to be that dickhead foreigner that nobody likes. So you need to sort of develop a sense. It's kind of a fawn response sense, a chameleonic sense of what are the coordinates in the new culture, the new coordinates. And frequently, taboos are things that you kind of have to sense by what you don't do and what other people don't do. People don't usually tell you that something is a taboo. They'll usually tell you the right thing to do. They'll be like, oh, you know, in Thailand, you should smile and you should bow more than you would. Like, you wouldn't smile as much as you do here. It's considered odd if you're not smiling, right? And you have a social interaction. It is considered polite to make eye contact and to smile. And then the taboos, the things you're not supposed to do, nobody likes to talk about them. So you kind of have to infer it. And I think one of the social taboos that we have that we're very, very stuck on, love, sex, and money. You're not really, like, it's considered in the West, whether it's America or the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, it's quite crude, usually, to be talking openly about, say, your favorite sexual position, right? That's a bit. How much you spent on your credit card last month and what you spent it on. I mean, I've done talks on money before and emotions around money. And it's always a fun thing to do, is to say to people, how comfortable would you be to show me your credit card statement and let me know exactly how much and what you spent your money on just in the last month? And people kind of recoil in horror because we're into and love is like that, especially pair bonding, because love that then goes into an institution, which is pair bonding for life, also then includes many other taboos, including sex and including money, once marriage and the legally binding contract is there. So there's a multiplicity of taboos. So outside of feeling ashamed because you weren't the manly, tough, the person whose environment, you go, well, the flip side of that is women also are ashamed, less ashamed. They're way more comfortable coming forward. And for both men and women, failing in love is deeply shameful. But perhaps it's slightly more shameful for a woman to fail in love. For a woman to have a failed relationship, it's shameful for men and women, but might be slightly more shameful. Now, how do I know that women feel more comfortable than men talking? You can use the live chat right now, or you can go through any one of my videos at random and look in the comments section. My video viewership, 5% women. Comments on the videos, I would say conservatively, is 85 to 90% women and only maybe 5 to 10% men. So men are watching, they're interested, they watch just as long. So YouTube tracks how long people watch for, but they don't comment as much. They don't say as much because they don't want to self-identify as having been the victim of narcissistic abuse. It's much, in some senses, it's much healthier the way that women will deal with it, because it's an emotional issue and men get a bit funny about emotions. And that's something that I'd like to spend maybe 6 months to a year focusing on, is saying to men, hey, Let's get back into the emotional space. Let's claim that emotional space, reclaim your own emotions, own your own emotions, develop that emotional literacy. I strongly suspect that a lot of the trouble that men have with self-isolation, depression, and suicide would be, a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it would be ameliorated, would be improved by a more developed emotional literacy. For all of it, though, we don't want to fail in love. We don't want to come out and say to people, yeah, that relationship didn't work out, and it really, really made a mess of me, and now I'm completely heartbroken over it. Because perhaps in some sense, if you go the evolutionary psychology route, which can be a bit lazy and is a bit sticky, a bit of the thorny area, maybe what you're sort of admitting to is, I'm somehow genetically faulty. I'm somehow not capable of performing my duty as a human being in terms of my capacity to pair bond and reproduce. Suggest that, because the inverse of that scenario seems to be true. Not the opposite, the inverse. The inverse of that scenario is when people do get married and they do have kids, even if their relationship is far from perfect and they're far from happy and far from satisfied, you can see the relief. You can see the relief in them. Like, I did it. Like, I delivered back onto the tribe. It's my baby, I made one. You delivered back onto the tribe that which was demanded of you. And that question, when are you going to get married? When are you going to have kids? Has finally been answered. So there's a relief in the individuals who pair bond and reproduce, and a relief in the tribe, because the tribe is agitated until that happens. They're like, why are you going to get married? You're going to have kids or not? Just tell me. I just want to know. And they're kind of pissy about it. And you're like, chill. They're not going to be yours. You won't have to take care of them. They'll be mine. So, can we just relax with that shit? When it breaks down, the shame around it, again. So you have, for men, ideals of masculinity and what it means to be a man being sort of broken. So you're really a real man, I'm not a proper man. Ideas around love, ideas around being a effective, desirable, successful human being, being broken, insulted in a sense, which then produces shame. And all the victims of narcissistic abuse are like, fuck. Then there is the shit that you let that person get away with, that you should never let them get away with. Get into that in just a moment. I think Terry is trying to contact me through Facebook. Terry, are you there? Terrence? I'm live now. I'm sending the link again. Wonderful. The wonders of modern technology, eh? So then we have to sit there and say, okay, I was the victim of narcissistic abuse, and because of that narcissistic abuse, I let certain things occur within the relationship. I found myself being in a position where I was begging. I found myself in a position where I was self-abandoning. I found myself in a position where I started to behave very, very badly. Myself, I broke my own standards of moral behavior. There's a term, I've only started seeing it recently on the internet, and I don't know if it's internet created or if it's a psychologist or a published researcher that came out with it, or maybe it's always been there and I just never heard of it before, but reactive abuse. And I've seen that come up a few times in the last 6 weeks. It's a really good term. And I think what it means, what I understand from the context of the memes I've seen and the quotes that I've been given, is when you are abused to the point where you react in a way that makes you look like a crazy person, or you're abused to a point and then they withdraw and then you're looking for them and they accuse you of stalking them, which I've had done to me. There was a girl who lived with me for a year and a half. She lived with me. Technically, she was holding a rental situation elsewhere, but every day she was at mine. And she would finish at 12:30 at night, which is late. And then she would come around to mine for 1 o'clock in the morning. And one day she just didn't show up and she switched her phone off. And I then the next day went around all of the places that I thought that she could be, and even went to her friend's work and said, do you know where she is? And I called her mum. And then mum just didn't pick up the phone to me, and I called 15 times. And off the back of that, I was accused of stalking. And I was like, oh, she showed up 2 days later. She basically just fucked me off and got off with some other lad. And she showed up 2 days later, and she's like, well, you know, the relationship's over. And I'm like, you're fucking right, it's over. You disappeared for 2 days. But in that scenario, I was called a stalker. And I was like, you know, if that's what stalking is, we really need to redefine what the hell's going on here. You always showed up at 1 o'clock in the morning. All of a sudden you don't. I can't get in contact with you. I don't know where the hell you are. Yeah, I'm going to look for you because I'm in love with you and I don't want you to be raped and murdered. Sorry, that makes me weirdo. So it's like, you know, or you're provoked in situations of explosive rage or depression, or they'll push you back into an old habit, maybe an old addiction like a drug abuse or alcoholism or something like that.
Here I am.
Harry, is that? I am what? What are you?
I'm multifaceted.
You are. You are. I've always felt that way about you, Terry the multifaceted. Yeah, there was a few problems there, Terry. I think my signal is not amazing. My signal's a little bit weak, and there's a storm coming in, which means it's probably going to get worse.
There's a storm coming, Mr. Wayne.
Yeah.
It's a quote from Batman.
I gathered that by the reference to Mr. Wayne.
Let's not start.
I can't help myself. So,
oh, there was an error. You've gone again.
Say again, mate.
You've gone again. You've gone to postage size.
Oh, well, that'll happen every time you speak. My image will shrink.
No, it's come up as an error.
Am I in error?
By loading your app.
Oh, yeah. It did that to me a couple of times today. It said there's an error loading the app. So I don't know if Google Hangouts has an issue today. Yeah.
Let's soldier on. Let's push through.
Well, that's my attitude all the time, Terry. I mean, it's just onward Christian soldiers, marching as to war. Sing with me, brother! Onward Christian soldiers. Anyway, shame doing stupid things in public.
Which we're no stranger to.
Yeah. You get to a point where you realise it's not that bad. It's not that big a deal.
What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, exactly. That hasn't already happened and I survived, so never mind. Yeah, I started out by talking about the particular shame. Everybody feels shame post-narcissistic abuse, but particularly for men, there seems to be like something about having been the victim of narcissistic abuse that is not going to fit with most ideas of what being a manly, masculine man would be. Does that resonate for you?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we've come across it. I'm sure you have. I know I have with many clients. I mean, some of the clients, you would say is typical. They are, how can I put this? Very competent males. In many respects. Special forces. The emergency services, they say, they go into places where, angels fear to tread, for want of a better expression, and when they experience this, it's a different, the context is different. Hang on, I'm so strong in this context. Why aren't I in this context? And that starts the shame.
I would say
what do you want to call it?
The shame, what, sorry?
Virus, I would call it, or belief, or the feeling of unworthiness. You've frozen.
Am I back now?
You're back now? Yeah.
I would say I've seen that much of guys that you would consider to be alpha males, like you say, your ex-special forces guys, your bodyguards, your policemen, captains of industry, that it's almost like they're the ones who seem to be most at risk for not being able to detect narcissistic abuse and then not being able to handle it when it's actually dumped on the doorstep. Because they seem to be the largest preponderance of clients that I've actually seen are guys who are more that way. It's more of it seems to be something that afflicts alpha males, what people would generally call alpha males, more than any other sector of the population. Maybe guys hearing that would take some solace in it. Like if you have been the victim of narcissistic abuse, statistically, it's more likely that you actually have your shit together and you actually have your life in order and that you are capable of displaying effectiveness in the world.
Hmm.
I'm just getting some drugs inside of me.
Caffeine?
My favorite drug of all the drugs.
See, clean living water.
You're a healthy, zen-like, individual who has, unlike me, a bit string blue tack thing.
I'm still getting the feeling that do you remember that single that Cher had out in the 90s? Do You Believe? And there was a metallic sound to it. I feel as though I'm talking to Cher. It's breaking up and there's a metallic sound. Is there anybody out there? Okay. See where you are here. If any of my clients are watching this, can someone send me an email just so they know I'm not speaking to myself? And if I'm not speaking to myself, then I'll crack on with some ideas that I have of my own and how I deal with clients. I was just talking to, you've done it again, haven't you? I was just talking to myself. Is there anybody out there? You know when you freeze?
Yeah.
Right. You know when you
Yeah.
freeze, does the whole thing freeze? Are there still people out there? Am I talking to myself? Which I do often.
Well, I just looked in the comments. What do often?
Which I do often, talk to myself.
Okay.
That way I'm assured of an intelligent conversation, you see.
Terry, I see you, I feel you.
You feel me?
I feel you, homie. I feel you, dog.
It comes natural, doesn't it?
You are so gangster right now. So very gangster. Guys, I'm really, really sorry about this bad connection. The storm is kicking off outside. I may drop in and out. Looking at the comments there, Terry, when I dropped, you were still on. So maybe just try. Yeah. Apparently there's comments saying, go ahead, Terry. You're on your own, mate. You've taken over now.
Who was that off, Steve?
Yeah. Oh, Steve going, go on, mate. This is us. He's going to love this. He's going to love this.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So I got said Google Hangout just for men. The title doesn't mention that. Listen, Grumpy Pants. Every once in a while, I may want to talk about the fact that men are the victims of narcissistic abuse. There's no need to spit your dummy out. This doesn't need to be a social taboo that we all need to corral, try and prohibit or edit. Sometimes men are the victims of narcissistic abuse. If you don't like that and you don't like me saying it, go and watch a video of a kitten on a skateboard. Did I tell her or what, Terry? Did I tell her?
I was dumbstruck. I felt like going to watch it hitting on a skateboard.
It's a post-hypnotic suggestion. Everybody's going to have to do it now. So bringing it back to everybody, like when there is this intense shame post-narcissistic abuse, where do you as a coach, how do you help people through that? Where do you start with them to help them through the shame of admitting that they've been abused?
Well, look, the first thing, this, you know, and this is the way I work, is to normalize it, is to let them know that it's not them. You know, it's not their fault. They're not to blame. It's not their fault. But they can take responsibility, as in responsibility for moving forward.
Yeah.
Again, I think I've mentioned this before. Beyond CBT, beyond NLP, all those things, which are generally classed as second wave therapy, there's a third wave therapy, which is the acceptance and commitment therapy and compassion focused therapy. All these are research-based, evidence-based therapies. And I think compassion, to be able to show compassion for your own situation, your own humanity, accept your own humanity, is key in moving forward. You know, and when I say acceptance, I always have to clarify this, or tend to clarify this, is acceptance in my book, in my world, doesn't mean resignation. You know, oh well, that's the way it is. You know, it's okay. Start from where you are. This is where I am. Right? What needs to happen? What do we need to do? What do we need to believe? How do I need to act to move forward? You know, the process is quite simple. Doing it, actually putting it into action, which brings me to another thing. Actually, with the clients that I've got, all the clients I've got, the ones who really move forward and really make gains, and they're probably watching now, so they know who they are. They're the ones who do the work. They do the homework, you know, the emotional history maps, ad nauseum. You know, they do it every day. Right? They do my homework that I give them every time. You know. They give me updates regularly, and they see a benefit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. I think there's something about what you said there with normalizing it, letting people know you're not alone. Other people have been through this.
Not alone.
And to sort of, you then, without having to say it with them, as you said, compassionately, and encourage them to accept their own vulnerability, their own humanity. We can accept our own humanity and vulnerability and accept the situation while still being able to say, no, that was wrong, in the sense as being okay. It's absolutely morally wrong, but we accept that it happened. We accept that, yes, we acquiesced to it. That's quite key, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and from there, again, once you've accepted that, it allows you to move forward. In NLP, we call it present state, desired state. Present state, where are you now? Yeah. Start from where you are all the time. The past isn't going to change. You can change your perception of it. It's time to let go and say, right, move forward. How do I want to be? You know, how do I want to be in the future? That's where I come from anyway. Solution focus. Spend as much time as may be necessary to allow yourself to understand why maybe things have happened the way they were. But that's all. You know, once you understand, you get a clear, as we know, is psychoeducation. You understand why these things happen, that it's not your fault. You know, you're not to blame. Okay, now move forward. Now, I don't know whether Richard was actually listening to me and keeping still, or he's frozen. You know, and from there, look at the way you want to be, your desires. I call, for those of you who work with me already, present state, where you are now, desired state. desired situation. How do you want to be? Let's say, for instance, let's say you woke up in the morning, or wherever you are now, you went to bed, whether it's morning, noon, night, whatever it might be, but you went to bed and you woke up the next morning, and suddenly, for whatever reason, you woke up and you realize that whatever issues you had, whatever problems you might have had, they've gone, they've disappeared overnight. You don't know why, you don't know how, but they've disappeared. What would you be doing that you're not doing now? What would you be saying to yourself that you're not saying to yourself now? Give that some thought. If you want to really get sort of into the nitty-gritty, if you like. Okay, now it's gone off. So where are we? Okay, are people still with me?
Terry, people can still hear you. You were holding the fort there. It was me that left.
I missed that one. Say that again.
It was me that left. You were holding the fort.
Okay.
I have to apologize to you, Terry, and to everybody watching. There's actually a full-blown storm has come in, and my signal is probably going to be really weak until it passes over. Usually coastal noise storms are quite fast, so hopefully it's going to go away soon. Really sorry about that, Terry. You were in full flow there.
I know. I was just.
You were freestyling. It was beautiful. The crowd was going wild. I personally was very, very.
I can hear them. Where? Hey.
It sounds like a goat being sacrificed. I don't know how I know what a goat being sacrificed.
They're all on the edge. They're all on the edge of their seats, wondering what's on the TV.
Yeah. What the hell is all this about? So, in terms of, if I was to say, I think that shame and not accepting what happened and not accepting our own humanity keeps the healing process stalled. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah. It's. You look at all the research, all the major therapies. They all agree on. There's one or two things they all agree on. One of the things which I think is really important is the connection between the therapist or change agent, or whatever we want to call ourselves, right, and the client. Without that connection, without that resonance, the feeling that they're being listened to, they're being heard, right? Which, by the way, is a really, really useful, for want of a better expression, intervention or way of working through shame. Getting it out in the open, right? In a safe environment, trusted environment, yeah. It doesn't particularly have to be a therapist or a change agent, but as long as you trust that person completely. I would recommend a therapist or a change agent, obviously. But yeah, there's a saying I have, along with triggers. When we get triggers, generally triggers are they are unconscious to a degree. They are unconscious. Simple as that. Yeah, they are unconscious, right? And when we bring them into conscious awareness, they don't live well. Triggers don't live well in conscious captivity. Imagine triggers an animal, yeah? Once you see you for who it is, what it is, right? And it's the same with shame. You get it out, yeah? And you look at it. And you again, one of the key tools as far as I'm concerned, certainly on the course, wherever I'm working with anyone, it's learn to think critically and think critically on the things that you're telling yourself about your shame, right? Is it true? How do you know? Who says so? What are the counterexamples to this? Finding counterexamples to a generalization, to a belief. Again, the people who work with me at the moment, they'll know this, because I ad nauseum, look for the counterexamples. If you have a limiting belief that that doesn't work for you, a belief doesn't work for you, it's a conclusion that you've come to, a generalization that you've made. look for the counterexamples. You know, do you want one of my stories as an example?
Make yourself comfortable. Come on, Storm. Come on, Storm. Kill the internet. I'm only joking, Terry.
What's that?
Go ahead, mate.
Oh, right, okay. This is it's a similar concept, but not quite so, right? Working with a lady who'd been in a very severe car crash. She'd been in quite a nasty car crash, right? And as a result, as the brain does, and again, I keep referring to the people who know me, the brain does three things really, really well. It mixes stuff up, it leaves stuff out, and it groups things together. If you want the jargon, it deletes information that it doesn't think is important. It doesn't like uncertainty, so it'll mix stuff up to create certainty, right? It's the key to anxiety, yeah? I'm going to go, I've been in an accident, I'm going to go in a car again, and okay, and then start projecting into the future. What if I crash? What if I go past that location again? It's all made up. You've got no clue, right? And we generalize. That's how beliefs are created, as you probably know. Well, you do know. Simple as that. And she generalized out that she'd been driving for 30 years, right? And now she couldn't get into a car. She went from love driving to hate driving, can't stand driving, right? She couldn't even be a passenger, right? There's a couple of examples where we create some counter examples, but the main one that sort of springs to mind is when she was driving with her husband. He looked behind him, right, and she triggered. She had a meltdown. She went to she had a flashback, right? It was a severe flashback, and that's what we discussed in the session. Now, as we were reviewing, we got it out there, we looked at it and we were talking, and I said, "Where's this going?" She said, "Well, when she was 18, she was in another car crash, even more so, it was a flipper, And I said, "Well, what was going on there?" And she was 18. The driver was 18, and that's how that crash, the first crash, happened. He looked behind him, right? He wasn't looking where he was going. So that was the connection. That was the trigger. Does that make sense so far, right? And I said, okay. So, what are the differences? What are the differences between you then and the situation with your husband? Well, I was younger. I hadn't been driving that long. I was, and then the key one was, he was drunk. The first fella, when he was 18. Was your husband drunk when he was driving? No. Okay. Is your husband a good driver? Yeah. And then again, cutting a long story short, we started creating the counter examples. The difference between the husband and the young lad. The obvious ones. Do you see where I'm going here? From there on, she claimed, yeah, of course, yeah. It was almost like a light bulb going on. She said, and of course, he wouldn't have turned around if it wasn't safe. He's an advanced driver. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
So she was able to pull that get that unconscious trigger, pull it out, analyze it, see it for what it is. And as you know from my Christmas decoration analogy, it never goes back the same way. You can't put it back the same way.
Yeah. It should be pointed out, like, some people hearing that, if they've not done coaching work, you would think, why would she make such a bizarre generalization between one incident and another when they're clearly different? But when the trauma is intense, the emotion is intense, and when you have an intense emotional traumatic experience, firstly, the brain is not really reasonable. That's our narcissistic fantasy, that we're reasonable, rational beings. But your brain doesn't, our brains as human beings don't make connections on pure crystal reason. They'll do it predominantly based on emotion and how you feel.
We all do. Even the most analytical individuals. I'm a very analytical thinker. Accountants, teachers. Oh, we're very analytical. No, they're no. Sorry. No. When you think about it, you look at the research.
It's not.
Sorry, you on.
I was just going to say it's not human nature to be like that. We can try to be, but it goes against the essence of what we are as animals, doesn't it?
Well, if you look at the research, and there are different, there's a lot of solid research out there. We actually, our conscious mind is between half a second and 6 seconds behind the unconscious, right? So before, for instance, if I go for this glass of water, I've already, the neural circuitry is firing half a second before I'm even consciously aware I'm going for it.
Yes.
I can never remember the guy's name. Do you remember his name? Libet, the guy who did this research many years ago. Yeah. I'll find it and look it up and I'll send it out. Yeah. But there was also a documentary about it a couple of years ago, and there's some research in Sweden that suggests we're 6 seconds behind. Our conscious mind is 6 seconds behind our unconscious on decision making. So we think we made a decision consciously, but it's already made up before we're even aware of it. And again, it seems to make sense again, with the research. We've made up our minds about someone within 4 seconds of seeing them, before 7 seconds of seeing them. Yeah.
Yeah. It's I think understanding that the unconscious is such an important part of the healing process is really key to making the coaching work that we do actually, where they do loads of exercises every day just to get through the day, where they can just go into sort of normal life.
Again, didn't get you. I just sort of, I just got the shared impression again.
The auto tune of Cher. Do you believe? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Right, I'm not saying anything useful now. I'm just doing shit Cher impressions. I was saying the understanding the way the unconscious functions is really critical to getting the coaching work to stick, isn't it? I mean, that's where the three of us are neuro programming trained, hypnosis trained, and that's been really quite. I think if you took that component out of the coaching, it wouldn't be as effective, would it?
No, I think there's got to be. I mean, coaching works, CBT works for some people some of the time, NLP works for some people some of the time. Yeah. Once we start saying we're this, we're that, it's NLP, it's this and this, I think we do a disservice to ourselves and our clients. To be multidisciplined as a change agent is key. So being able to work with the unconscious, being able to work with the cognitive function, even somatic. I mean, right now, I'm really sort of paying close attention to the work of, I can never pronounce this guy's name, Vessel van der Kolk.
Van der Kolk.
Van der Kolk, that's him, yeah. No wonder I'm not getting through soon. I'm getting a Dutch fiction author called Van der Kolk. Well, I've actually done some stuff with it, and it's useful. I've tried, my thinking is, let's have a look. Try it out. Does it work on me? Does it work on my clients? The answer is yeah. Happy days. Let's use it.
That makes a lot of sense. When it comes to, have you seen much, this is a leading question. Are you ready? Have you seen much of the clients into after narcissistic abuse?
Say it again. You just sort of.
Have you seen much? Have you seen much evidence of clients self-isolating post narcissistic abuse?
Yes. Why is it a leading question?
Because I fucking know you have.
Oh, okay then. Yes. Because don't swear at me. I'm sensitive.
Hey, babe. Here.
Yes, I have. And again, because for them, it feels safe. If I isolate myself, I'm safe. Stay out of the way. it's a habit. It's also a habit, because for most abusers, that's what they want to do. They want to isolate. They want to cut you off from the rest of the herd, if you like. So look, just listen to me. It's me. I'm the one who knows the truth about you. It's not right. It's not true. Yeah. And that habit carries forward even when we've got rid of the abuser. We're out of it. But the habit of self-isolation is still there. One of the things, again, with clients, when I'm working with clients, I have something called a fear hierarchy. You know, have I mentioned this before?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Again, any of my clients watching, they'll some of them will know this. And we scale on a 1 to 100, right? And say, okay, 100 being, oh God, no, could never do that. And a million, oh, no, I couldn't do that, right? That's 100. 0, it might be sitting in the house watching TV on my own. You know, okay, so well, what would be 15? And they might say, well, going to the park, you know, walk, going to a shop, and saying hello to them, right? So we create a hierarchy, right? So then from there, we just step outside the, because this is what it's all about. And there's a I don't know whether it's a famous quote by David Bowie, but it is a quote by David Bowie. He said, do something that scares you just a little bit every day. Just do something that scares you every day. I won't do a David Bowie impression because I can't do it, right? And this is the same thing, right? So, for instance, let's say the first one that sort of is just outside your comfort zone, but it's doable, is going to the newsagents, the shop to get a paper or whatever it might be, and talking to the news and looking them in the eye and whatever. Okay, let's work around that. What do we need to? What needs to happen? What do we need to think? What state do we need in order to be able to do that? Feel the anxiety, yeah, but do it anyway. Then we do that. Again, we're setting up counter examples to the belief that it's not safe outside. Oh, there's a proviso, there's a caveat there as well, and I say to all my clients, yeah, always be aware of your health and well-being, your safety, right? So don't go, you know what, I'm going to walk down Central, I'm going to walk in Central Park, midnight, not a problem. No, don't do that.
Yeah.
It's
I like the idea of teaching the client to grade their sense of fear on a scale to 0 to 100. It sounds very much like promoting the idea of setting up an internal boundary, of being attuned to your own emotions and going, well, this actually frightens me. And then you can admit it and feel okay about it and go, right now at this point in my life, post-narcissistic abuse, actually going to the fucking pub, sorry, Terry for swearing, going to the pub is, for me right now, it actually is setting me off a little bit, and it's taking me up to like a level 40 in terms of the hierarchy that you've described.
Yeah, it's a key element in something called exposure therapy, which is a CBT-based, evidence-based CBT-based therapy. I've done it. I think there's quicker ways of doing it. But again, there's that many different tools out there. Okay, if this tool's appropriate, then let's do it. It's called scalability. NLP, we call it scalability. Yeah. If something is too much for you, then drop it down. Drop it down to just take yourself to the edge.
So, what I think I heard you say regarding the self-isolation issue, and it's nice actually, is that people self-isolate for two reasons. One is the narcissistic abuser isolated them, and we all end up accidentally and unwittingly and unconsciously repeating the abuse that the narcissist put us through, such as the extent of brainwashing. Secondly, you're going to self-isolate so that you feel safe again. Is that a fair summation of what you said?
Yeah, and it also becomes a habit. I don't go out now because I never went out when I was with him or her, because I didn't feel, and now I don't go out. It's I've got other clients outside of this context that are going through the same thing, because they believe that somehow, for some reason, that they are not good. Well, it's the global one, isn't it? Not good enough. The key one. That is.
It's ubiquitous.
Say that again.
I said it is ubiquitous.
Ubiquitous, yeah. Right. I wish I'd have thought of that word.
Listen, if you want words, Teddy, you come to me, mate, because I know some long ones, and ubiquitous is one of them. Like, you know what I'm saying, kid?
I'll remember.
How do I expect anybody? How does anybody? How do I expect anything I do?
Dictionary here that I go every time you see something. Oh, ubiquitous. Yeah, I know what that means.
So the one of the other the questions that I wanted to pose to you is when people are looking to get assistance, because this came up when I was talking the other day, particularly to men who don't want to look for help. The question came of, what should I do to get assistance? When somebody's coming out of a narcissistically abusive relationship, whether it's a man or a woman, a human being coming out of a narcissistic abusive relationship, where should they start if they're trying to get help with that? And what is there anything that they should avoid doing?
Avoid doing talking to well-meaning non-professionals. That would be a good big one. What should they do? Seek help, get support from people who you trust. Yeah. And I'll keep saying it until I'm blue in the face. Give yourself a break. I run course. One of my sort of signature courses, if you like, is called "Give Yourself a Break." Clever name, That's why I say you like that, yeah. And in essence, it's compassion-focused therapy, right? Now, again, a lot of people think, oh, it's a bit woo-woo, a bit fluffy, hairy-fairy. But if Stanford University have got a whole department that look into this, and it actually it changes the wiring of your brain. This I'm using it as an example. This attitude of gratitude, where you wake up every day and you write things that you feel gratitude for, and a lot of people think it's this new sort of new age hippie dippy stuff. It over time it changes your brain. Over time, it's been proven, it's been researched, that you start to look for the optimistic side of things. You look for, Is this making sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. Do you find it difficult to get clients to be self-compassionate? It seems to be one of those things. They can be compassionate for other people, but showing themselves compassion is like this taboo, this verboten readily. At
first, that's generally the But once they understand, once they get past once you get past this shame, once you get past the how can I put it? The original reason they come in, they feel less than they should be. They're not that that there's something wrong with them. Once they get past that, and they can tend to go for the compassion. I don't think I'll put that across right, but once they know that it works and there's nothing wrong with it and it's perfectly okay, and they're just acknowledging their own humanity and what compassion does, they can, and there are also ways of introducing compassion where it's not directed at themselves, but they still get the benefit. Being compassionate towards others, for instance. The same neural circuitry fires when you're compassionate towards others. A key part of a lot of people's therapy is with people who've got depression, who suffer from depression. Go outside. Get your attention from inside to outside. Do things for other people. Yeah. Become compassionate towards other people. Yeah. Again, within boundaries. Yeah. And obviously the research that it does change your brain. Okay, so this isn't just some sort of theory. It actually does work. The Buddhist psychology, they knew this 2,500 years ago. instinctively, but they didn't have MRI scans to prove it. But they knew that it changed your brain. If you were able to show compassion to yourself, compassion to other people, it changed the way you were. I also have my own little sort of techniques to I don't like using the word techniques, processes to help people experience compassion, but maybe via someone else who they believe loves them unconditionally. Does that make sense? Is that making sense?
Yeah. So you sometimes you sort of have to. You said techniques, and I shouldn't use the word trick, but sometimes you do have to trick the brain in space. You can't feel that way about myself. So you go, oh, okay, we won't do that then. We'll go over here, we'll go over here, we'll go here, and then back through, find a way to get back there through the side door. So, right, I'm being way too harsh, way too critical with myself, never be with anybody else. If you can switch that off, the compassion then doesn't need to be taught. It just kind of instinctively and naturally flows in that space.
Sorry, go on.
No, it's okay. What were you going to say?
I was going to answer the question that I'm sure other people, some people out there would ask is, well, I don't know anyone who loves me unconditionally. You know, how can anyone? You know, there will be. I have had that before where people, well, I don't know anyone. You know, now the thing is, you know, because I don't feel as though I can be loved unconditionally. However, you know, for instance, a pet. You can imagine a pet, you know, who loves you unconditionally, looking through what you must feel, I know this sounds a bit strange, but again, we're looking at 2,500 years of practical application here, right? But a pet, for instance, some people love their pets unconditionally, right? If there's no pet, again, it's a Buddhist thing. How would someone look if you could create someone, just like creating a safe space? If you could create someone who you knew loved you unconditionally, what would they look like? What would they dress like? What would be in their eyes? Yeah, a lot of people come up with the Dalai Lama. Funnily enough, it's a generalization, but that's what they come up with because it's non-judgmental compassion for all beings. Right now, again, it's not airy fairy. There's research out there. There's evidence out there that that suggests that it does have a beneficial effect on the brain. And I know it works because I've tried it. I put it into action.
I know. Okay, well, I think that was good. I'm really sorry about the body. I'm on a very, very weak signal here, and as well, which didn't help. Terry is available for coaching now. The feedback that I don't want to embarrass Ted for Terry has been really, really good. People have loved working with him, and they found it really, really helpful to get them moving forward post narcissistic abuse. So if that's something you'd like to do, if you want to go with Terry, and drop an email, coach.info, and we can get you set up. Did you hear everything I said okay there, Terry?
Mostly.
I went a little bit share in points, did I?
You went very share at times. But it's good to share.
Very share. To go very share at times. It's good to share.
He's gone again.
Hitting up on me now. Can you still hear me, mate?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I'm going to wrap this up because it's going dreadful again. Thank you very much for that, Terry.
My pleasure. Love it.
Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll do this again next week. Thank you for your time and your attention, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Cheers.